So that question is a relatively easy question. I'm going to try to make it concise in the answer, but it requires some time. Uh, Look, C players should never have made it into the organization to begin with, and it has nothing to do with pandemic or COVID or anything like that. And so we have to really understand that I'm not empathetic. I have empathy. However, a C player typically has put themselves in that situation themselves. They should have been dealt with before the pandemic, but certainly they need to be dealt with now. Now, put it another way, as a leader of a company or an owner of a company, I have a fiduciary responsibility to keep the company profitable and alive. If I were to not do that, I would have basically shortchanged the people that are A and B players. It is unfair to retain a C player regardless of what the economy is like on the outside if I'm putting at risk the overall organization, and then I have to start carving into B players and possibly A players and eventually have to declare bankruptcy because I didn't take the initiative to deal with the bad apples as they exist. I suggest that the majority of people that are C players by their own lack of initiative and their own lack of commitment to doing the job. I won't be held responsible for that morally or physically in being able to discharge my duties as the leader of a company. Next thing I would tell you in this area, though, is that some people may misread that inside the company and outside the company. And so it's critical to communicate the thought process behind it. No different than what I just did in answering the question.
This is a challenging situation during this time right now, is the need sometimes to let go of C players, people that are not performing at the level they should be. And it's especially, and I had one of the folks I'm working with say the optics are bad on this, because you're sending them out into an economy, and that it's going to be really hard to find another job. So the way you do this compassionately, and this is the way the CEO explained it to everyone in the company. We did a town hall. He said, you don't realize that there's been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes for a long time. This person's been coached, they've been worked on, they've been training, we've had performance improvement plans in place, and we have worked, for months or a year or years to try to get this person up to speed. And I think all of you have seen that. And the decision, unfortunately, had to be made now because the performance was not where it needed to be. Another thing, and that's one way to do it, is help people understand. You just don't walk in one day and vaporize it. Like, hey, Bob, I don't like you, but you're out of here. But, I've been working with Bob for 8 months on this, and everybody in the company knows it. And his performance is getting there. That's a realistic way. Another thing that is very, very valuable is having clear metrics, binary metrics around performance. It's black or white, yes or no, 1 or 0, no guessing. One of my favorite business phrases is ambiguity breeds mediocrity. So if you've got a clear line of sight at someone's KPIs and there's no guessing on how they're doing on it, and everyone else knows that, and they're seeing that that person is not delivering on time or quality or whatever it might be, they're not meeting their KPIs, at least when they're released, people know it was a performance issue, not a personality issue, and or just a financial issue. It's that this person before this and now continually was mediocre and wasn't doing what they needed to do. And the last thing I'll say there is keeping someone like that on the payroll now is a threat to everyone else's job. And for a couple of reasons. One is it could burn you out, look and say, I'm working so hard and Bob over here is just barely puttering along and he's making the same I am. So why don't I just drop my performance? Because obviously that performance is acceptable. Or the other thing is if you keep a couple of C players on and your company gets in financial trouble, you are now jeopardizing everyone else's job and the company to pay for people that aren't helping the company succeed. So those are the two big things is transparency, letting people know there was a lot that went into this decision. It wasn't just knee jerk, and those binary measurements so people know that it isn't personality, it's actually based on data. Okay, what do you do when a C player has great performance, but has a bad attitude. So there's a real clear way to look at this, in my opinion. Is it a state or is it a trait? Is it just because of the quarantine and the pandemic? They're in a bad mood. They're frustrated. They're depressed slightly. They're angry, which is natural. Everyone should go through that. That's part of this process. So is it just temporary, or is this the way they always are? And if this is the way they always are, and this is a really tough decision, I've had to tell people at very high levels in very big companies who had employees that were bringing in millions and millions of dollars and say, but they're violating the value you have of respect. They treat people terrible. The only people they treat nice is their customers so they can make as much money as they can, but they're horrific with everybody else. That person doesn't need to be in your company, or you need to change your values. So, because every day you let someone treat people poorly and disrespect them and be, pessimistic and nasty and rumor mongering or things like that, and you allow them to stay there, is the day you tell everybody else in the company, you can act and behave any way you want to as long as you make your numbers. You bring us in profit, you can be a complete pain in the butt. So that is going to be a window into the values and business philosophy of the organization you work with. And it's going to impact your other great performers who look at it again and say, I'm doing this with respect and dignity and professionalism. And I always pick on Bob. I don't know who Bob is, but Bob over here is brutal to everybody, and he still has his job. Why is this?